I did a show and it was a very surprising place. The place was like a club right out of Goodfellas. And there were private tables and you'd sit there and it was all red interior and just it just looked like something was going to go down there eventually, like a hit of some sort. I mean, that's what it was. There's lanterns on the table. I mean, it was really a weird, strange club I've never seen the likes of before. And when you got up on stage, there was a piano and a very bright light in your face, worse than a spotlight. You could not see into the audience, which I guess was intended.
Why is that?
So mafia guys could sit in the back and just not be seen by the comic, and you couldn't really make fun of anybody because you couldn't see past the light. And there were probably like 5 people in the audience, and I was still thrilled. I was thrilled doing my set at 2 in the morning for the breakfast crowd on a Sunday. I went home that night. I got home at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up my mom and I told her I just performed at Dangerfield. It was so exciting. And then I don't think I ever went back there again. And it just wasn't, like you said, the normal club like the other ones that just seemed normal. It was a very strange club.
Yes, that is the voice of comedian Dave Juskow, who is our guest today on Comedy History 101, where we school you in comedy. I am Harmon. Hello. We've been off for a while, but we are back, and we have a good one today on the history of Dangerfield's Comedy Club. You might be familiar with Dangerfield's Comedy Club from the 2019 film The Joker, where they wanted a scene where the Joker is doing stand-up comedy in a shady comedy club. So, of course, they picked Dangerfield's, because Dangerfield's was, because it closed in 2020, one of the most bizarre comedy clubs in New York City. Like, I've lived here for over 10 years, and I never heard of anyone saying, I'm performing tonight at Dangerfield's. It was just sort of this lost comedy club in a parallel comedy club universe that managed to exist up until 2020. It opened in 1969, and legendary comedian Rodney Dangerfield was part owner of the club, but yet it was just plain creepy. And Dave is going to give us a history of Dangerfield's Comedy Club. And Dave, by the way, is a member of the Comedy History 101 Two-Time Club. Yes, he is our very first two-time guest on Comedy History 101. You might remember him from our past episode on the history of the Comedy Cellar. But before we jump into the episode, show Comedy History 101 some love. It's about time. Take some time to like, subscribe, comment on Comedy History 101. It will show your support and your love because we are giving you some excellent free content and a deep dive into comedy history. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes or check out our site and comment at comedyhistory101.com. Also, a few quick plugs. On June 20th, 7 p.m. at Young Ethel's in Brooklyn, I'll be presenting my show, That 80s Improv Challenge. Yes, 3 improv teams compete by creating scenes from ridiculous and bizarre videos from the 80s. So come check that out. And on June 28th, 7 p.m. at the Red Room in the Lower East Side, I'll be presenting my show Tale, NYC's finest storytelling. No hokey gimmicks, no dumb themes. Tale brings you the best in New York storytelling. And of course, on July 7th, 8:30 at the People's Improv Theater, I'll be presenting my show AI versus Human Roast Battle. Come out and see a human comedian / rapper take on a machine learning AI in a roast battle of tomorrow, but it's actually on July 7th. And you can find out all about my tour dates at harmonleon.com or at harmonleon on the social medias. And now, without further ado, we are going to jump into our episode on the history of Dangerfields.
You're stupid. Everybody's so stupid.
I'm trying to use the phone! Excuse me!
Comedy History 101.
Oh, there we go. Hello. How are you?
Yeah, things are good. Enjoying the summer. How are things with you?
They're fine. I really enjoyed doing your show the other night. It was super fun.
Yeah, that was fun. And it was a good hang afterwards. And
Yeah.
again, loved afterwards just talking comedy club history stories, which is the basis of what we're chatting about today. I did like a deep dive into Dangerfields. I think there's so much on Dangerfield, and it's such a perplexing club in its history. I think just to dive right in, let's go micro. What is your personal history relationship with the comedy club Dangerfields?
When the last time I was on, I don't know whether I told you about my first night of comedy. Do you remember that I mentioned a place called Pips in Brooklyn?
Yes.
I did. Okay. So the first night I ever did comedy in 1983, like 40 years ago, exactly, almost. The MC of that club, when I was asking what do I do for the open mic night, turned out to be a terrific guy. I think I told you his name was Jesse Kitten. So you get on stage and say, "I'm just kidding." Hilarious. And he was the MC, and we became friends like immediately. He was very nice to me, which is rare for an open mic guy. I don't know, I guess we hit it off somehow. So that night of doing comedy, which was a Wednesday night in August of 1983, he says, you're funny. I run a show at Dangerfields on Sunday nights at 12:30 in the morning. I do a late show. He goes, "Would you like to come?" And I'm like, "Would I like to come? You're damn right I'd like to come." I mean, wow, I was like blown away that not only did I guess he thought I did good enough because it was my first time ever. I don't know what I was doing. I think my dad gave me some material about Reagan to do, not my style of comedy. I just do imitations. And he was like, "Yeah, if you want to come by." And I'm like, "That'd be great." The lateness didn't bother me. I thought that was cool.
That is kind of cool. That 12:30 hour is.
I didn't know they did shows that late. I was living in New Jersey with my parents. So, I mean, how exciting. I was a huge Dangerfield fan from Caddyshack. Before that, of course, and just kind of knowing a little bit about his comedy. But after Caddyshack, he was my favorite comic. And then, and again, I don't know whether we talked about this or not. The No Respect album came out in, I guess, 81 or 82. And I listened to every bit of that album backwards and forwards. That was my favorite comedy album of all time. I thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever heard of this guy. He was the Dave Attell of his day. Those one-liners were incredible. I never thought I'd meet anybody like him until I met Attell, and he was just as mean and nasty.
Did he record that album at Dangerfields?
Now, that's a good question. You know what? We could look at the liner notes. I get the feeling he did. So I'm not sure. So I worshiped that album. And then I went to, I was so obsessed with Rodney Dangerfield, not, way after not just Caddyshack, but his comedy and being a comedian, and which is the reason I wanted to try it. I was so obsessed with this guy. And I mean, anybody that saw him back then was obsessed. He was incredible and brilliant and so funny and self-deprecating, obviously. And just his character was so great. And that movie just kind of escalated that to a new level. And I'm bringing this up for a reason. I went to go see him perform at what was called the Garden State Arts Center. And that's the PNC Bank Center in Jersey. So I saw, and it's kind of funny when we're talking about this and the history of comedy. I went to see him perform, and I couldn't wait to hear him do the material off of the album, No Respect, which I don't know whether you know about the way stand-up comedy is now, because you do more storytelling. But no one does that anymore.
Yeah, you kill your material off of like doing your Netflix special.
Well,
and then it's like people, they already know the jokes.
But so what? We
Yeah.
did back then, and I wanted to hear them again.
Yeah,
so my
exactly.
friends, including Sarah Silverman, Rachel Feinstein, David Tell, who all have Netflix specials now, and Sarah and HBO, they all say, well, I can't do any of that material anymore. I got to write all new stuff. Like Sarah's starting a new tour, Sarah Silverman I'm talking about, and not doing anything from the HBO special. I'm like, why? You don't think some people want to hear? Then what's the big deal if we hear the joke again? But apparently that's what musicians do. We sit there and wait for Billy Joel to play a song from 50 fucking years ago. And if he doesn't play it, we walk out, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, you don't want to hear like these iconic bands going, and now here's something off my new album.
The Polite.
You want? Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Paul McCartney back in the 90s, and he was playing, he's sitting there and he's playing Live and Let Die, and you're going ballistic, and he's playing the Beatles stuff, and he goes, oh, John hated when I play this, but fuck him. And, you're like,
yeah, time to use the restroom.
Right. Well, I think they do it on purpose almost that way. I remember I saw
check out my merch table.
Yeah, exactly. I saw Steely
Here's
Dan
the new
perform
one.
once, and they let Walter Becker do a song off his album, which was clearly a bathroom break. They must know, and no one cares. So anyway, he's doing the whole album plus 20 minutes of new material, and that's the way it used to be done. We saw Robert Klein on Broadway, and we're like, God, I hope he does I Can't Stop My Leg, or his bit, Little Rascals bit. I just don't understand. It's Louis C.K.'s fault. He's the one that ruined all this, where you can't hear the material. I mean, what's the big deal if I hear a joke that I love? I don't know what the fuck happened. Anyway, it's just kind of funny that we couldn't wait, and he's just basically doing the album. It's funny when you think about it now. And I paid money to see him just do the album live, But it was great. I was obsessed. I was in high school in 82, and I was doing a Rodney Dangerfield imitation. It was one of my hey, you're okay. All right. You're all right. And I remember we were doing it was a variety show, and it did Rodney Dangerfield meets the Brady Bunch. And apparently in the program, it said Rodney Dangerfield meets the Brady Bunch. And every kid my age worshiped Rodney, and they knew I was going to do the imitation, and they all liked it. I was a big hero in my high school. That didn't bode well. I was one of those guys, this guy's going to make it. He's going to make it. And then I ended up in gay porn. But Harmon, but seriously. So they had. But
I digress.
Right. So they had it in the program, Rodney Dangerfield meets the Brady Bunch, and they moved it to the second act. So people were going crazy, like, Rodney, like they were angry, like, where the fuck is Rodney Dangerfield meets the Brady Bunch? And so when it finally came out, it was just like, first, there was the Brady Bunch. People went crazy. And I'm like, hey, I'll tell you, it was incredible. Like people it was so stupid, but he was such a powerhouse. And again, I'm bringing this up.
I can see, but by the way, I can picture my head just for a high school crowd of your friends.
Right? I'm wearing the jacket. I got a tie. Oh, I'll tell you. The kids, they drive me crazy. My kids. My Dr. Finny Bone Boss. I'm pretty much just doing the album. I'm doing the jokes, but they love it because that's what we did back then. I didn't have to write new material. Just doing Rodney. I did a pretty good imitation. So my first night of comedy, I definitely did that imitation on stage. This guy invited me to Dangerfield's. I don't even know if I guess I knew Dangerfield's existed, but and I don't think at that time.
Yeah, it's at a weird location, and
it's at a very weird location.
I believe 60th and First Avenue, which is upper
60th and First. So
west east side.
It's weird because now, I'll tell you the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he says I can go to Dangerfield. I'm like, this is going to be the greatest day of my life. Maybe Rodney will be there. So I went that day, and it's a very scary, sketchy neighborhood. I didn't know anything about Manhattan. I parked in this very bad spot on York Avenue, which was sketchy, and I was scared. The funny thing is now I live here in that exact neighborhood.
Wow.
The weirdest thing. Yeah,
it's a thing called gentrification.
Yeah. Right.
Happens every now and then in New York.
Right. So I went to the club. I saw the guy, and he put me on. I think I got on around 2 a.m. because that is the way it used to work back then. They didn't have really, they had open mics, but they didn't have, they had open mic nights. They didn't have bars that were doing shows. If you wanted to do comedy, you had to get to the show. Dangerfield's, the Improv, Catch Register, you had to go to one of those places and hang around and hope the guy would put you on at 2 a.m. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, was this a case? What I read was Dangerfield's didn't have an open mic, and that differentiated it from the other clubs.
Maybe that's true. Perhaps that's why I never. Yeah, that might be true. So I guess I was feeling really good about this guy asking me to do this at my heroes club, and I walked in, and there's pictures on the wall of Rodney, and the Caddyshack photos are up there, and I'm like, this is so fantastic! Wow, this is amazing. Do you think Rodney will show up? But Rodney's not showing up on a Sunday at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
And I said, does he ever come by? And I think he used to be there quite a bit, but just never, when I was there, I never got to meet him there. I did a show, and it was a very surprising place because, first of all, I don't know if I know you were doing research on it, but the place was like a club right out of Goodfellas.
Yeah, like how many people did it seat? I was trying to get a feel for it. Like, is that like 100-seat room?
Yeah, I'd say 100.
Okay, right.
And all right out of Goodfellas. It must, I don't know when the hell it was made, maybe in the 70s, but it looked like it was made in the 50s. And there was private tables, and you'd sit there, and it was all red interior, and it just looked like something was going to go down there eventually, like a hit of some sort. I mean, that's what it was. There's lanterns on the table. I mean, it was really a weird, strange club I've never seen the likes of before. And when you got up on stage, there was a piano and a very bright light in your face, worse than a spotlight. You could not see into the audience, which I guess was intended.
Why is that?
So mafia guys could sit in the back and just not be seen by the comic, and you couldn't really make fun of anybody because you couldn't see past the light.
Wow.
Okay. So I think because there's no other reason. The light is bright in your face, and it's not like any other club I'd only been to 2, but I mean, since I've been to other places, it was not like any other place I'd ever been to. And there were probably like 5 people in the audience, and I was still thrilled. I was thrilled doing my set at 2 a.m. for the breakfast crowd on a Sunday. I went home that night. I got home at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up my mom, and I told her I just performed at Dangerfield. It was so exciting. And then I don't think I ever went back there again. Yeah, well, not because I didn't want, maybe I didn't want to go back. It was a little sketchy, like I said, and a little scary. And it just wasn't, like you said, the normal club, like the other ones that just seemed normal. It was a very strange club.
You're stupid. Everybody's so stupid.
Didn't it have like a differentiated, their wait staff? They didn't have waitresses. They had all waiters.
Old men, as if you were going to Peter Luger's or a steakhouse. The waiter.
So they had a steakhouse wait staff.
Exactly. The waiters were definitely in their 60s or 50s, 60s, 70s. And they were there until it closed a few years ago.
Yeah, I believe there was a guy, Chario Antonio, who at the time of this article was like 77, who started in 1970. And he had a hankering for being a comedian. And he would, in the 70s, jump up on stage between acts and do his off-color jokes that would offend the 70s crowd, which I would have to say would probably be very off-color.
Yeah, yes. And the thing about that club, what it was, you were kind of supposed to be very dirty there. Or at least, I don't know whether it was like that the first time I was there, but they wanted you to be dirty. And the other clubs weren't like that. They wanted filth and just like, man, my pussy is dry from this, like whatever. Like I don't think they like girls at the time, but I was doing Yamanika's act, but they wanted dirty. And that's what it became as it went by in the 90s and the 2000s. It was a very strange club. Most people that made it never went there. It just wasn't a normal place.
Yeah, it was just like, again, I've lived here for 10 years, and just hearing it closed in, I believe, right after the pandemic, 2020, I believe it closed. I just didn't even know it existed. It's like, whoa, Dangerfields is still around?
Yeah, so
that's happening. There's
about
orbit
1990,
universe that goes on there.
exactly. So in about 1996, when I was doing comedy regularly, I had an audition there for like a movie, I think. I did my show and it went really good, I guess, because I got a call from the booker and they're like, they called my managers who were actually Caroline's. They said, hey, they want to book you for paid spots at Dangerfield's. And I turned them down. And I said, I am not interested in performing there. That place is fucking creepy. And that bright light is annoying. And they were like, wait, what do you mean he doesn't want to perform here? And the reason why they asked me to perform there were these two new things I put in my act. And maybe we talked about this last time. I can't remember. I was doing mostly just jokes from imitations of people from the 60s, and it wasn't very risque or anything. I added these two new jokes, and it changed the trajectory of my career. I opened with Mr. Magoo getting fucked in the ass, and I ended with Bill Cosby on the Def Jam Comedy Hour. Then the man ate the woman's pussy. So those two jokes is exactly what Dangerfield was looking for. Even though in the middle it was all like, and here's the kid from My Three Sons. I think you're going to like him, And so they liked that. They liked dirty material and they liked that. And that's why a lot of acts didn't go there. Now, the interesting thing about this club on the flip side was when TV shows started coming in, the HBO young comedian specials.
Yeah, they had, that's where Rodney had his specials, like where Seinfeld got a start, Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay.
Andrew Dice Clay for sure, and Kinison. But I don't know about Seinfeld because the young comedian specials were filmed in different clubs. This was different. This was HBO's Young Comedian. So they were sometimes filmed at Catch a Rising Star and sometimes at Dangerfield's was one of the most legendary ones of all time.
Yeah.
Right. So Rodney was, I believe, the host. Which why wouldn't he be? And it was in that particular one, I think it was Kinison and possibly Andrew Dice Clay, but the most prolific one was the punch drunk. Oh, what's his name?
Bob Nelson.
Yes, Bob Nelson.
That's an act you don't see much anymore.
No, and it's funny because
the thing is, I like character comedies, though. I like
popular from that one special.
Yeah.
And he never did anything. He tried to do a different kind of character like the football player and never did well. And he made
he just branched out in like different sports. Like here's another sport guy.
That was he's like, I got to do something. So yeah, he made it for like a year.
Yeah.
He was able to go out and tour a little bit. And then he just never, it was never that. I mean, people were talking about that because those HBO specials there wasn't a lot on TV.
There's like four choices of things to watch.
Exactly. So the young comedian specials, everybody was watching. And that particular one was, I think Harry Anderson might have been on that one.
I'm going to throw this out. Yakov Smirnoff.
Oh, is he on that one?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, listen, I
love those clips.
Right. So whatever it is on that, but that particular one was a really big one in the sense that everybody became famous from that one, whether you like him or not. Yakov Smirnoff was a huge comedian for 2 years. In my country, we like to vote.
I know the fall of the fall of the Iron Curtain kind of ruined his career. And then he branched into like Branson, Missouri, and relationship jokes.
But all those guys had a good 2-year run from that special film at Dangerfield's. It bought Dangerfield's, kind of gave them the reason they were probably still around in 2020 was because of that special in the 80s.
Yeah. So do you think that was the heyday, the 80s or earlier?
Yeah, no, I think that was the heyday. I think that was
because of the specials and all that. I think
because if Rodney Dangerfield in the 80s couldn't, and that wasn't a popular club, and he was the king of the world, and it still wasn't popular, there's something wrong with that club.
Yeah, so I think
that you didn't know it was around is problematic.
Yeah, I think initially he owned 90% of the club, and I forgot the name of his partner. I think it was Anthony Babe Bavaca.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think he gave a shit about the club, and that's the problem too.
Yeah, but I think he sold it off.
He put his name to it
after 6 years.
Exactly. He just put his name on it, and that was that. But he didn't give a shit. Sometimes he'd hang out. and I was fascinated to know what he did and what he drank and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is, years later, I was waiting to get on at Catch a Rising Star in the, I guess, the 90s, 2 a.m, Catch a Rising Star up the street. And Rodney came in, and it was really exciting. And I'd been waiting my whole life to meet him. He was so hammered that it was a disaster. It was awful. And he's like, oh, yeah, people were going crazy. And they're like, oh, I don't know. What do you want to talk about? I don't know. He didn't have anything.
Oh, man.
He was just going on. It's like, oh, I was in Caddyshack and back to school, which of course is good enough for me. We all just want to look at him.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. So he goes, anybody have any questions? And then somebody goes, why didn't you do Caddyshack 2? He goes, I don't want to talk about that. Anything else? And that was a good question.
It is, because Jackie Mason starred in one of the worst sequels of all time. We did a episode on that.
That's right. A really, really horrible one. And there's a whole bunch of...
Dan Aykroyd plays the Bill Murray character.
That's right. And there's like new articles that say, oh, maybe Caddyshack 2 is underrated, but they're wrong.
No, it's not. It's awful. It's probably
awful.
The worst.
Awful. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, like Dan Aykroyd plays sort of comes across as a mentally challenged guy.
It's really messed up that he wanted to be in it, and Chevy Chase is even just.
Oh yeah, he's in it. Like,
awful.
yeah.
Why would he even do it? Yeah.
I'm trying to use the phone.
But conversely, Easy Money had scenes filmed at Dangerfield, so that was, I believe.
What about Easy Money being?
I think what I've read, but I was going through ChatGPT. There could be some discrepancies. They had a scene filmed at Dangerfield's in Easy Money.
I don't think so.
Oh, maybe not.
I've seen Easy Money 100 times, and I don't know what
Ah.
scene would have possibly been filmed in Dangerfield's.
Well,
I mean,
conversely, and very much so, the fictional comedy club Pogo's, as seen in The Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, was filmed at Dangerfield.
That was filmed at Dangerfield's. Yes.
Yeah.
I think Gary Goldman.
And what they wanted, I think, if you look at the movie, is very much a shady comedy club.
Exactly.
Like that really uncomfortable comedy club.
I mean, I just stopped going in there because, they just wanted nasty comics and to do that kind of stuff. And, just nobody wanted to.
Who were the people? Because also a logistical thing, it's not located next to a subway stop. So you have to make Dangerfield's a destination.
It's weird. The Upper East Side had 3 really good comedy clubs: Dangerfield, Comic Strip, and Catch a Rising Star. And they just, now the Comic Strip is still somehow there. So now Dangerfield's, I don't know if you saw, it's been finally bought by another
Rodney's.
guy. They call it Rodney's, but the guy that bought it only bought it to spite the Comic Strip. So I don't think he cares about making it a good club. And they're putting a lot of really crap people there.
Yeah,
Bummer.
so I believe that opened like last year. And again, didn't know until I researched this.
Nobody cares.
Rodney's. Yeah. I mean, again, there's always those weird clubs. Like, what's the one in Times Square? It's like the
LOL.
Yeah. Come on, come see the Comedy Central showcase.
Nobody even knows where it's located.
Yeah.
But that's where you play when you're starting out,
When you want to do the bringer.
I mean, the fact that LOL club is still there, it's been there for like 10 years or more.
Yeah, it's all about the location because they don't need the audience to come back. So it's like, I just saw a shitty show with a bunch of bringer people, and So
I don't know how they were getting people. But Dangerfield was extremely popular for prom shows around this time of the year. Very popular. So they'd stay open till they'd have 12:30 shows or 2 a.m. shows for proms, and you could come in underage and go there. And people loved Dangerfield. Was a huge prom, and people hated doing the prom shows, comics.
I've heard about that because it's just like they're not drinking and
and that's what they were
really want to be there.
And of course they were drinking, but not there. So now they're kind of drunk, but they can't have more and they can't keep it, and they're just they don't. How can a kid who's 16 relate to somebody like me who'd be performing on a prom shows almost 60? Yeah, and they went all night and they were horrible, but Dangerfield's had a lot of prom business. Probably helped them fuel the rest of their year there. But it had the name. I don't know what kind of publicity they did to keep it, but just the name was keeping it running. And then when he died, it just, fell out of complete favor.
Yeah, so that, and sorry, the trick. Very interesting thing though. The Rick Rubin produced comedy album Andrew Dice Clay, The Day the Laughter Died, recorded in 1990, was recorded at Dangerfield's. I've only heard clips of this, but it's basically Dice at his Madison Square Garden packing heyday. Rick Rubin, genius producer, minimalist, taking Johnny Cash, just play a guitar. Kind of did the same thing with Dice, just put him in a small club and recorded jokes not landing. And it was, if you look back, it's a very ingenious Rick Rubin album, but it was filmed at Dangerfield's.
Yeah, well, he had to go back to Dangerfield because that's what made him.
Yeah.
So he owed the club and he owed Rodney, I think. And, you just did what Rodney told you to do, even at that level. Dice got it. He knew. And it's just so funny because if it wasn't for Dangerfields, nobody would have heard of Dice. And Dangerfields was the perfect place for a guy with that kind of material to play. That it fit perfectly. Those kind of jokes, at that place. And the fact that I think he was the first comic to do a place like Madison Square Garden. It's just incredible how popular it became, and all from the Dangerfields. I said there was the Young Comedian special, and there was a Dangerfield special. I don't know which is which. One was a Dangerfield separate thing that was not the Young Comedian special, and one was like a Rodney Dangerfield presents.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which was which. I think Andrew Dice Clay was, and the other guy who I keep forgetting is Bob
Nelson.
Bob Nelson. They might have been on that Dangerfield, not the Young Comedian. I can't, because the Young Comedian special was big for many reasons too. And I think Rodney hosted them at other clubs. So I don't know. I got to get that together and then I tell you, but those Young Comedian specials, whether they were the real ones or the Dangerfield ones, just, you could look at the list and it's incredible. And if you got one, even on, episode, the 13th annual Young Comedian special, you're still seeing comics that are relevant today. It was like a huge, if you can get that, it was like getting your own Netflix special today.
Yeah, again, if you look at that the one filmed at Dangerfields, everyone became a star.
Everyone became a star. Well, Rodney was really good at picking out talent.
Oh, Sam Kinison on that one as well.
Rodney discovered Kinison, and that's why Kinison is in Back to School. And Kinison knew it too, and that's the thing. And Rodney was just really good at helping. He actually was good at helping young comedians. We had I do a Billy Joel podcast. We had Dennis Blair on the podcast, and Dennis Blair was his opening act for years. And the reason we brought him on was because he's also in the movie Easy Money, and kind of came up with the song idea for Easy Money for Billy Joel. So we had him on the show, and he was talking about Rodney and how. And this is, he told a great story which kind of explains Rodney. Rodney was he was a coke guy, and it's like he was a party animal, just like in Caddyshack. See him, but he really tried to help younger comics. He was really, really good about that. Not just like, let's give him a chance. He was really tried to nurture them. And so they got into a fight for some reason. I don't remember why. And they saw each other again in Vegas, and Rodney took his wife. And they saw him perform, and Rodney, I guess, goes to his wife, and his wife told Dennis Blair later, and he goes, "Tell me why I'm mad at this guy again." So they made up. He was really good at, I don't know. I think that's really nice that that's the thing, became a star, but he still loved stand up.
Excuse me.
If you want to, and this isn't about the club, this is just about Rodney. There's an incredible YouTube tape of how meticulous he was about his shows. It's fascinating.
Well, he's the ultimate craftsman.
Right. And you don't know it until
if you look at the structure and the cadence.
Until you hear this audio tape, and I don't know if you've heard it, where he's like, okay, now the first 5 minutes, I'm going to come out, I'm going to do the joke. And I want the band to come in at exactly the 2-minute mark when I say this. And he's being really serious. And it's funny because it's like Rodney, and, that voice is just funny, but he's so serious. You don't even realize, because it seems so off the cuff, of what a true professional he was,
Yeah. Just an interesting tidbit. On the opening night in 1969, in the audience was Milton Berle, Joan Rivers, and David Frost. Like how,
wow.
yeah.
Oh, that club opened in 69?
Yeah, so a
Wow, I
claim
didn't
that
know
it
that.
had was it's the oldest comedy club in the United States, but I was at the Ice House last summer and that opened in
In
1960.
Pasadena.
Yeah, that opened in 1960. So I don't know if that is
Oh.
actually maybe oldest, longest running, but Ice House started in the 60s. We'll just say up there, one of the oldest.
Wow. I didn't realize he opened it in 69. That's incredible. I mean, he wasn't
Yeah.
even famous then, and just opened his own club. That's so cool. I've been waiting to do that. Juskow's
Yeah,
should
I'll
be
play Just House.
well, I would do things different. I'm saying I would have people like you. I would make more of a variety show thing instead of
Variety
just
is good
comics.
these days, but yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, but people don't seem to care. They're the worst. They just want to see comedy. And I'm like, well, you're going to get this anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why you've never heard of me before.
So just a couple last questions. My Zoom is down.
I know. I'm seeing the time there.
But again, it keeps our thoughts concise.
I agree, but
we
we're
don't have
doing
to
a
go
proper
Joe
goodbye this
Rogan
time.
podcast for 3 hours.
We're doing a proper goodbye this time. So with the 2-minute
Yeah.
mark, I'm going to start saying goodbye. I don't want the thing to cut off on me like last time.
Yeah. So again, good points about Dangerfields, bad points about Dangerfields as an entity in its long history.
I feel there are no good points.
No good points.
No, except no. I mean, the place was gross. That light was stupid. There was really no reason to be there. The only, if you want to say good point, would be how it spawned, but that was all spawning these acts that we liked so much in the 80s. But that's only because of the TV show. So the club bought you nothing. And, I don't think those guys ever even played there again after the TV show.
Oh, was the manager kind of a tough guy, or what type of guy was he?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But they were all old men and it wasn't fun. It's like, that's the other thing. Comics are disgusting and we like hanging out with the staff and young waitresses.
Exactly.
When you could talk to them and tell them they were pretty back in the day. But we could go out and drink with the staff a lot, I mean,
is this a normal dynamic? It's like a normal.
The only thing that was good I would say about the place is that they had a bar area where the comics could congregate and be friendly. A lot of places didn't have like a bar area to hang out, or you'd have to be like which sucks because comics need to talk before they go on and stuff like that. So it had a dedicated room, and that's about the only good thing you could say about it. I don't know what's happening over there now at Rodney's, but I've heard horrible things in the sense of what their plan is. They haven't been paying the construction workers. I think the guy that owns it is going to be out soon, and I think my friend might take it over, which would be good for us.
Yeah, and
that's a spoiler alert.
Yeah, but again, 61st and First. You live up in that area.
It's perfect for me. That's why I want to play there.
Yeah,
I've heard it's just not great.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole part of it. And industry, they'll go to the stand, they'll go to the cellar, but are they going to come, Dangerfields or Rodney's?
Yeah, that's the thing. There's nowhere to park. There's nothing to do.
There's not a subway.
Strange area, right? When the stand is in Union Square. That's fun. It's cool. And the cellar's in the West Village. How can you compete with that?
Yeah. And lastly, what overall do you think is Dangerfield's place in comedy history?
Well, so it is definitely the only thing is its namesake and the fact that the television special that spawned this Bob Nelson phenomenon that you could not explain to kids. I mean, if they watched it today, you think that would hold up? They'd be like, what the? Because I've seen it recently. And I'm like, I can't believe we loved this. It does not hold up.
I think he was Rodney's opening act too for a long time.
I told you Dennis Blair was for a long time.
Yeah.
So but you're probably right. I mean, he was using a lot of guys.
Rodney did a lot of shows.
He was spreading the wealth. But I mean, what are you going to tell me that you're going to watch Andrew Dice Clay's act that's completely anti-women in this day and age, and that's going to hold up? So its legacy is shit. It's never going to hold up in this day and age. It's just the only thing you can take for it is what it did for a few people in the 80s and like a year or two of good times and its namesake of who it's named after. Otherwise, the club gives you nothing. The Improv, where that's on Seinfeld, where he performs on the show at the Improv, and that has a pleasant place in people's lives. Like things happen in the TV show Seinfeld there, let alone what I know that happened at the actual Improv. But that leaves a nice place in your mind. Dangerfields will not.
I think it's just summed up best in the 2019 movie, The Joker, when they wanted a location of a really shady, crappy comedy club for the Joker to bomb his act and have the most uncomfortable visual element of bombing on stage.
Excellent point. And the point is, I think Gary Goldman was in that scene, and he would never play a place like Dangerfield's. So, there you go. And what you're saying is exactly the correct legacy.
And lastly, where can people find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram at Dave Juskow, and I have a show every Tuesday through the Comedy Cellar on YouTube that's live at the Comedy Cellar every Tuesday at 6 Eastern time. And otherwise, my podcast, Juskow in the City.
Excellent. Dave, thanks again so much. And
Yeah,
we don't have to
fun.
jump off immediately. We actually have 2 minutes just to
I told you I wanted to go with this
Dangerfield.
time and-
Okay, let's sum up the history of Catch a Rising Star in 1 minute. No, that was good, man. There's a lot on Dangerfields, and again, it's iconic in a very New York sort of way, because I think only New York could spawn a club with the atmosphere like that of Dangerfields. Maybe Chicago, but
yeah, that's true.
Very New York club.
Yes, it was. And again, thank you for having me on. I love talking about the history of stand-up and all that kind of stuff. So it's super fun, and you're a terrific guy.
Thank you. You're a terrific guy too. And I hope we run into each other again very soon.
I hope so too.
Okay, man. Thank you. Much appreciation, and great talking to you as always.
Okay. See you later.
Okay, bye. And that wraps up our episode today on the history of Dangerfields, one of the creepiest comedy clubs ever to grace New York City. And remember, as always, show some love and respect and appreciation for Comedy History 101 by liking, subscribing, and commenting wherever you get your podcast, or on our website, comedyhistory101.com, or on X, Twitter, whatever the hell it's called now, at Comedy History 101. Also, remember, a few quick plugs. We're going to go through this quick. June 20th, 7 p.m., Young Ethel's That 80s Improv Challenge. June 28th, 7 p.m., at the Red Room, Tale, NYC's finest storytelling. And July 7th, 8:30 at the People's Improv Theater, AI versus Human Roast Battle. And you can find out all about those dates at Harmon Leon on the social medias or harmonleon.com. And until next time, bye-bye.
You're stupid. Everybody's so stupid.
I'm trying to use the phone!
Excuse me!
Comedy History 101.